Welcome back to another episode of Projecting Grandeur. I am your host, Ron Dichter. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being part of this growing community. I want to get into it today, and I want to talk about musical instruments and musicians and really just kind of do some analogous work around it. Because I was talking with some entrepreneurs last week, and one of the things that they had said to me was that they've been at it really hard for 6 months and they aren't having the success that they want, and they're frustrated and don't feel like they have the results that their effort warrants. And I got thinking, I was like, 6 months. I mean, that's a good chunk of time, right? You're going to see some progress for sure in that amount of time, but to think that you're going to be an expert in your business and your field in 6 months, probably not realistic. And we all have this set of tools that we have to start our own business, and granted, some of those tools, in the words of Capital, might be varied, but we all have really the same sets of tools that we're embarking on this journey with. And I think of it like a musical instrument. If you take a guitar, trumpet, whatever instrument you want, and you've never played it before, and you pick it up and you play, you're probably not going to know how to do it, right? So there's going to be a certain amount of weeks, days, months, where you're going to be spending trying to understand how the instrument works. And then once you get the fundamentals down, then you're going to try to figure out how to string together notes and chords and turn that into some sort of semblance of a song. And then from there, you can actually start to, think about the instrument in a way where it just comes naturally to you. And maybe you hear a tune in your head and you can just, play that on your instrument, and you become, more proficient. And I don't know why we think that going into business is going to be any different than that. Picking up your instrument, whether it be an office, your product, whatever it is you're doing, the first time you play it, you're not going to be good, and you're going to be figuring things out. You don't have standard processes, that the business operates in. You don't have sales infrastructure. You don't have, support infrastructure, and you're figuring out kind of where things go. And that might take, weeks and months, maybe even quarters and years. And as the business starts to get out of the gate, you start to have, real life problems that come in, right? You think that it's going to go this way, like you're reading, music on a sheet of paper, but once you actually start playing, maybe you can't go, at the same pace, that things are written on the pages, or maybe, you don't know how to do a chord change from one to the other. And it takes some time to, become fluent in being able to do that. And then again, once things progress further and the business is actually going, like now you have actual customers, right? You have things that can go wrong in the business, things that you didn't foresee, whether it's the way that someone's using or adopting your product or service, whether it's the way that you think people are going to use it and turns out they have some needs that you didn't anticipate. Real life starts to get in the way, and you start to have these challenges. And so as you're embarking on this journey, or you're thinking about embarking on this journey, you have to think of it like an instrument. You don't know how to play it at first. It takes you time. And as you start to practice and get the fundamentals down, you become better. And as you start to be able to string together chords, you might get a song. And as you string together songs, you might be able to write your own music. And these things take time. I mean, if you think about that whole concept of 10,000 hours, that it says, it takes 10,000 hours for you to become an expert, in whatever you're doing. Well, if we work, 40 hours in a week, like, I don't know, that's a long time of how many weeks you're going to have to put together to be able to make, yourself an expert. So going into business thinking that you're just going to be good because you're putting in 6 months of effort, like, this is not a realistic, outcome. And you might get lucky and you might stumble upon some success, but ultimately it's going to take time. It's going to take practice. It's going to take determination and fighting through. I remember when I learned how to play the guitar, my fingertips killed me. Like, I couldn't play for more than 5 minutes because my fingers hurt so bad. And then as I got a little bit better, I could play longer because I built up the calluses on the ends of my fingers. And it's the same way in business. Again, playing the instrument is part of it, but you actually have to go through the pain of learning. And in this example, it was pain in your fingers, building up calluses. But that's that same example, just learning, how the chords go, how the notes play. It takes time. So my recommendation here is, as you get going into it, set realistic expectations for yourself. Be practical about the amount of time something will take. And if you want to accelerate it, work harder, put in more hours, do more off hours training, spend nights and weekends really perfecting your craft, becoming better at it. But if you're not doing those things and you're expecting results to just happen, I think you're going to be in for a disappointing experience. And I just want everyone to set the right expectations. I mean, professional athletes have been training for 10, 15 years before they go pro. So to think that you're going to become a professional business, or an entrepreneur that's, pro, like, you got to put in the time. So be patient, realize that as you have these struggles along the way, that is just part of the journey, and use these as opportunities to learn, to enhance and perfect your craft so you can become better, so that each day is better than the one before and each week is stronger than the one before. And again, that comes from perfecting your craft, spending the time, and practicing. Quick one for you today. Hope you find this helpful. If you are a musician, you probably got this analogy better than others, but you all get the point. Have a great day. Again, this is Projecting Grandeur. Please remember to like and comment. Most importantly, share. We are helping entrepreneurs change the world, because I believe that this world is a better place because of the entrepreneurs that have made businesses that make the world better. So have a great day, everyone. Talk to you soon.